Hi everyone, I'm outside St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Naperville, Illinois. This is going to be my little video that I'm going to do on my religious field trip. So I thought I'd take you guys to St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church because that's the church where I grew up and I had to attend as a little kid and suffer through. So it's a church that holds a lot of meaning to me. So I thought I'd do our religious field trip on something that had some meaning in my life. Here, let me flip the camera around. I don't know how to do that. Well, here, I'll show you. That's the little school that I went to, that little schoolhouse there. That's where I suffered all those years in school. So here's some basic background on St. Peter and Paul Church. As you can see, right, it's definitely an old church. Well, it's actually the oldest church, the oldest Catholic church outside of the city of Chicago in what's called Dupage County. It was originally built in 1846, and it was originally called St. Raphael's, and it was named after the priest who built it in 1846. You see the little schoolhouse there? That was built in 1852. So yeah, it's been here a long time. But in 1846, it was just a wooden structure. And then there was a terrible fire in 1922 that burned everything down. So let me show you more about that kind of architecture. So in 1922, there was this terrible fire. Here, let's see. Yeah, that's better. That burned the entire structure down. And then it was rebuilt as a stone structure in 1922. And you probably noticed that the architecture is very distinct. The architecture is what's called neo-Gothic. Neo-Gothic architecture made a comeback in about 1920s, early 20th century, as a result of steel, the use of steel. So steel basically had this, you could build these huge tall structures like the medieval era that were thin. Steel also reflected light, right? So it kind of played on these ideas of medieval architecture, which uses height and light to kind of create this idea of transcendence and to make a human feel like, basically they're a small peon, right? So yeah, medieval architecture uses these strong, high structures, uses reflections of light to kind of create a situation where the human feels very small, right? And therefore God feels very large, feels very transcendent, right? You feel like you're part of something that's bigger than you. So yeah, this uses that neo-Gothic architecture. Specifically in America, people started using neo-Gothic architecture a lot because they wanted America to kind of be represented as the fulfillment of Christianity, specifically Catholicism in the States here. A lot of Catholic churches in the early 20th century used neo-Gothic architecture because they wanted to represent Catholicism as kind of the inheritor of Catholicism, the Catholic tradition. And the Catholic tradition was largely seen at its height during that medieval Gothic period. So they wanted it to look like Catholicism had made it to America, and Catholicism was grand, large, and huge. And of course, this is to reflect the fact that in the early 20th century, Catholicism was not large and huge, but was actually a minority, a small minority community. So among all the different communities of Christians, right, Catholicism was generally at this time a minority, although during the early 20th century, more and more immigrants will start to make Catholicism more of kind of mainstream religion. But at the time, it was a very small religious community among other Protestant Christian communities. So yeah, they wanted to build their churches really large, really big, to make a powerful statement that Catholics had made it and they were Americans, right? Because there was a lot of kind of fear during this time too that Catholics were not Americans. They were immigrants. They didn't really fit. There were fears that they wouldn't obey the US president, but they would just like follow the Pope, right? Mindlessly follow the Pope. So they were kind of maligned and marginalized at this time. So you can see in the architecture that the architects want to respond to that by showing that American Catholics are actually deeply American, and they're proud, they're strong, and they're the future of America. So thanks, guys. I thought, I don't want to go inside right now because it's Sunday and church is in session. I also don't want to go inside because I was known as being a troublemaker. So I feel like if the priests see me, they'll be like, oh God, what's she up to? I was not known as being how would I say, obedient. So I don't want to go in and cause issues because they know who I am. But yeah, you can see from this architecture and everything from the outside. So I hope this video kind of helps kind of place you guys in what I'm expecting. But yeah, so for your videos, right, introduce us to the place as I did, right? This is Naperville, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, about 40 miles, right? And I told you a little bit about the history, its importance for the area, for the neighborhood, for America in general, by focusing on some key artistic and architectural attributes of this religious site, and kind of brought it all together about telling you about a story about Catholicism in America. All right, thanks guys. See you soon.